4 now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of The VUU. We are the talk show of the Church of the Larger Fellowship, and we're so excited to have you here with us today. Today we are welcoming guests Meg Riley and Charles Dumont, who are co-moderators of the UUA Board of Trustees. And we are just delighted that they said yes when we said, hey, can you come on by? But before we get to that, as usual, we will be doing introduction of our hosts and a little bit of a quick UU roundup. So yeah, here we go. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Christina Rivera. I'm coming to you from beautiful Augusta County, Virginia, where it is cold, but not too cold yet. I'm still saying it's fall, even though it's probably winter, but that's okay. That's okay. We can just keep going with it. There was ice and frost and snow on the ground last week, but that's okay. We're just going to go with it. So that's where I'm coming to you at, Aisha.
Hi, I'm Aisha Hauser. Excuse me, I'm also drinking coffee, even though it's 9, not 8 a.m. And I'm in Seattle, Washington, and it's gray. The weather here is pretty temperate, I would say. It doesn't get really wildly anything. A couple of years ago, we had 1 week of snow, maybe 2 or 3 inches each day, and we were calling it Snowmageddon because, and people are so cute here. They thought it was like real storm. But when you only have one in all of Seattle, I could see why people panicked. So anyway, here it's fine. It's lovely. And I think that's all I have to say. We're going to oh my God, we're going to talk about Nailed It. I can't wait. It was so great. Michael, how are you? Where are you?
I'm doing okay this morning, Aisha. I guess it's afternoon here in Peekskill, New York, in the beautiful Hudson Valley, where it is a bright blue, clear, sunny, late fall day. It snowed here yesterday, and my favorite kind of snow, my absolute favorite kind of snow, there were white flakes in the air that melted the instant they touched the ground and stuck to nothing. So my favorite kind of snow, even though it might as well just cover everything with snow this winter since we're not going anywhere. And the first grader is in class in the other room, so if you hear wacky dance music, that's why. And life is okay. Tanner Linden, you are going to be behind the chalice and monitoring stuff. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Thank you. I'm in Southern California, and if it gets a little windy here, people think it's a storm. So I totally hear you, Aisha. I will be running tech today, so I will be taking your comments from YouTube and sharing them with the hosts here. So please feel free to comment and ask questions. And I'll also be sharing important links and reminders in the chat on YouTube as well. So keep your eye on that, and I'll pass it back to Chris.
Yeah, so we wanted to just dive right into our UU Roundup, and we are all a Twitter and a tickle here. We just can't even stand ourselves right now on the View and in the CLF, because last night we launched our Church of the Larger Fellowship Connects events. It was actually the third event, but it was one of our biggest events where we recreated the Nailed It concept from the cooking show. And if any of y'all haven't ever watched, the Nailed It concept is there are the master bakers who come up with these gorgeous cakes, and then the amateur bakers who try and recreate these cakes. And then you get to decide whether or not they've nailed it. And so we had Julica Hermann DelaFuente on, who is a master cake decorationist. She's just fabulous. She's also a CLF member and a CLF board member. And she challenged me to make a cake. And if you have not seen the results of this challenge, you are missing out on really like 45 minutes of just like laughter. So if you need some laughter in your life, we've got the link for you. Please go and check it out. You don't have to watch the whole thing.
I need to interrupt you because I moved to meetings. I needed to be there live. And so one of the funnest things was, so Chris and I are both external processors. So watching Chris ask questions about baking, and no one's there to answer her. And like knowing, and I'm not a baker. I mean, I bake, but nothing like Julica. And so just realizing like, and I'm not going to give it away. I'm not, no spoilers, but just watch, like, should I do this thing that is, and I was like, even I know that's a terrible idea. And she's just like, I wonder, should I, or maybe I'll do it this way or that way. What is it? And it was genuinely delightful. And then Chris is having a monologue, and it was just such pure joy. And I just laughed, and God bless you, Chris. It was mwah, chef's kiss what I needed. So thank you for that.
Yeah, so a teaser for that is, so I think that moment was when I was trying to figure out if you're supposed to frost a cake or ice a cake. I still don't know the difference between the frosting and the icing, but if you're supposed to do that while the cake's warm, because then it makes the frosting melt, or if you're supposed to do it when it's cold, because then it makes it, I don't know. So, the cakes came out of the oven, and I was like, well, maybe while they're warm, because then it'll get kind of melty. And it was so funny to be on last night to see everybody else in the screen just do what everybody else on this screen just did, which was they were trying to come through the video to save me days ago, which didn't happen. That is just the beginning.
I will say I watched it later because I had a meeting that I couldn't move because it wasn't my meeting, and I laughed the entire time. It was so much fun, and there are more events yet to come. So like Aisha and I are premiering Iron Chef CLF this Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and you're going to have to vote for one of us. So
okay, here's the premise that we did it, because in regular Iron Chef, we'd get the ingredients, take it down several notches there, Tino. Listen, trash talking. So in the premise of the real show is we'd get the ingredients and have to make something. So and folks can't taste it, right? So what we decided was Michael and I took the letters CLF, used them as our core ingredients, and made a dish. I don't know what Michael did. Michael doesn't know what I did. The big reveal is going to be Friday, and you'll see the videos as Michael and I trash talk back and forth in the professional way that we do. So obviously what I made will shatter all records of deliciousness, but we'll see. Oh yeah, and then we each have on our CLF master or the apron, chef aprons, Iron Chef aprons. So it's gonna be fun. And now that Chris raised the bar of hilarity, I'm just gonna have to do it live.
We are gonna have to be funny, Aisha. But not to give anything away, but my husband called the dish that I made the best thing that's happened in 2020.
Whoa.
So,
and mind you, Michael told
he's
me
a little
that before
biased.
I even did my video. Told me that, and I'm like, thanks, Michael.
He's a little biased, but
That's a pretty low bar, let's just say.
it is a very low bar. It is an extraordinarily low bar. So
can you at least tease the ingredients for us? No, not teasing the ingredients. Wow.
I want to be surprised.
The teaser is they start with C, L, and F.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Oh.
Okay.
There it is.
There you go, folks. Go look in your cupboards right now and think about what's in your cupboards with CLF. So all of the CLF Connects events are designed to do that, to connect CLF members together, to design to connect the CLF community together, and to connect Unitarian Universalists together. So even if you're not a CLF member, please join us at one of our CLF Connect events. They're a lot of fun. We need some fun in 2020, and CLF is committed to doing that, and we think we've got you covered. So just stop by. You don't have to stay for the whole thing, stay 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever. But you can check out our entire lineup. We've got the link in the chat, and just stop on by. It's going to be a really good time. And of course, if you have got a few bucks to throw our way, we appreciate the support as well. It is a fundraiser. It's kind of like our fund drive kind of thing, but I like to think that we're a little bit more fun about it than PBS. So just stop by and check us out, and we'll have a great time. So anything else going out there? We had a great conversation last week about the MFC and the MFC process. So shout out to this time last week when the MFC was actually meeting, Ministerial Fellowship Committee was actually meeting. If you don't know what that is, check out last week's episode. But, shout out to everybody who got through that process. And we know that, some folks get through that process in different ways, and that's all good. It is all part of it. It is all part of ministry. It is all part of ministerial formation. So just my heart goes out to everybody who was part of that process, particularly the volunteers, the committees of the MFC, are vast majority of them are volunteers. And that is a big deal. But of course, we do have favorites on the CLF. Just saying. I'm just going to say we do have favorites. And two of our favorites were our learning fellows who were going through the process. So Antonio Bell Delgado and Eli Schneider both have posted publicly. We feel great congratulating them on their progress through the MFC. We're so delighted to have them be part of the CLF family and are just really we're really lucky, we're really lucky that they're there and part of that. So yay! And the only other thing for the UU Roundup I will give a plug for is the Peaches and Pride UU the Vote Georgia Senate runoff event that is coming up on Sunday at 7 to 8. So you can check it out and then come to worship with us, so no competition there. Just come on down and check out what the UU the Vote is trying to do in Georgia for the Georgia runoffs. It's a really great 1 hour that they've got scheduled for everybody to attend, and they could really use your help. We could really use your help. Everybody could really use your help. That's what I've got for Roundup. Anybody else have Roundup? No. So
I appreciate, on behalf of my fellow members of the MFC, your thanks for 36 hours on Zoom last week. It was quite something. But I, for those who don't know, I serve on that committee, which is why I wasn't here last week. And it was such a pleasure to recuse myself from the panels of Antonia and Eli.
Yes. So we're so delighted to welcome co-moderators Meg Riley and Charles Dumont. And usually we have this bio that I'll read about people when we're coming on the VUU, but we know Meg and we know Charles, and so we just wanted to invite them to tell us a little bit about yourselves, give us your bio, and then we're just gonna launch into it. Meg, you want to start us off?
Sure. It's wonderful to see all the fun y'all are having. I always say CLF is a great sandbox to play in, and it's just pure delight to see the joy that you're bringing into this lead ministry and sharing with the whole movement. It just makes me grin. I have to go check out that video because I love the show, nailed it, and I've seen Julica's cakes. And if I try to imagine myself recreating one, that's hilarious just in my mind. So anyway. So here I am in Minneapolis, where it's not snowy at all. It was 50 yesterday, which is balmy here. I spent the afternoon with shifts of friends coming through the front yard where I had a big fire blazing. And so I have retired, which is a weird thing to do in the time of COVID. And I have become the co-moderator with Charles of the UUA board. So it's been interesting. I've been learning. It's a very different role to be in, and I'm excited to talk about everything with y'all. Charles.
Hi, I'm Charles Dumont. I'm in San Mateo, California. So it's weird for me because this is the first time I think I've been in a Zoom meeting involving UUs where half of us are on the West Coast. So usually I'm the lone person out on or one or two. And I'm in San Mateo, California, which is just south of San Francisco. It's about 50 degrees here. So it's kind of just a typical winter, but we need rain. So that's what we all want. We want rain. You all saw the fires earlier. If we don't get rain, we'll have more fires. So we need rain. You know, I'm a former CLF board member. I'm still a member of CLF. This is one of my families, one of my groups. So I love you all. I love what you're doing. And as Meg suggests, you know, we came into this world just a few months ago, so we've been on a rapid learning curve trying to bring together all the things that are going on in the UUA. It's been a challenging year because just the underlying 2020 year is a challenge for all of us. And so, you know, that was not in the plan when we decided to run for co-moderators. We didn't have a pandemic in mind. So, you know, we're all learning and figuring out how to move through the world this way. So good to be with you.
Well, we're excited to have you with us. So, yeah, I think that folks, you know, just giving folks a recap. So we have shifted at the UUA in terms of the moderator position. Moderator position used to be held by a single person, had been for decades and decades. And with the passing of Jim Key in 2017, the board of trustees came up with a different model and decided to see what it would look like to do some shared ministry modeling and shared leadership modeling. So we had our dear Alandria Williams and Barb Grieve as co-moderators for a couple of years while we were looking at rewriting the bylaws and seeing how we could make things a little bit more open. So can you all talk maybe a little bit about your decision to run together as co-moderators, coming together as a team?
Sure, I'll start that because I really want to lift up Alandria and Barb, without whom we could not be doing anything that we're doing. And you allude to Jim's death, but the trauma they inherited when they came into the board with, you know, that death, with the death of another board member, with the very abrupt resignation of senior leadership on staff, with the wonderful upheaval of the white supremacy teach-ins that certain people in this room got going. You know, it just was a time. And so they really were holding so much that, you know, when I think of what they did in their time, every day I'm more in awe of it. And I just never start without naming. And of course, they gave very sacrificially. Alandria, as we know, had very serious health problems that just got worse and worse, and eventually he died. And I think that's a cautionary tale about what too heavy burdens can do to leadership. And Barb is still with us and still an amazing leader. And but I just want to start with that. And then Charles, you want to come in on that note, or?
Well, I don't know. Maybe you want to talk about how you called me.
Okay, I made Charles I tried to get Charles to do this. You know, he was on the moderator search committee that did not find someone. And I said to him at the time, why don't you do it? You've got the skills. I've never thought of myself as a person with the skills for moderator. I'm not great at budgets and bylaws and all of that stuff that a couple of you are really good at. It gets on my nerves. And so it had never occurred to me, honestly, until we did a VUU show a couple of years ago with the moderator search team. And I went and read, and it led with that a team could do it. And something about that made me say, I don't have some of the skills, but I do have some of the skills. So I need to find somebody who has those other skills. And Charles and I originally hoped to be a 3-person team like y'all. I had been part of a 3-person ministry team that I liked quite a lot, leading a congregation, and a part-time gig for me the last couple of years. And I liked that number because it just brought some arguments, but then different opinions, and I liked that. And we really thought we shouldn't just be white people leading this. We talked to a number of leaders of people of color in the movement who said, yeah, this is an unpaid 5-year commitment that takes a huge toll. So get in there and change it so that either get it paid or whittle it down so that nobody's carrying this load. And so that's part of the charge that I think we came in with. But we really do have very diverse skills, and even we know really different people. It's shocking to me how few lay leaders I actually know. I know religious professionals, and Charles knows lay leaders from all these different environments. So that's really good, because I think, I'm one of the, I mean, Barb was a minister, finally named as a minister, but this has traditionally been a layperson's position. And so there was like a, what, you? And I see why. I mean, I think that balance is really important between professionals and lay leaders. But so I think part of the commitment we come in with is really empowering and bringing lay leaders in. But also I think that our differences lead to, as I'm sure you see in your team, that the different portfolios really lead to a stronger ability to do the work.
Yeah. So I had been on the the moderator search committee, and we at that time were pretty clear that there's people hear from old white guys a lot, and so I typically try to not be that person that people are hearing from. I'm happy to talk to people. I'm happy to help other people be lifted up and do other things. So it may call so then we said, sure, let's find somebody else, because we shouldn't just be a couple of white people. And for a variety of reasons, we ended up being a couple of white people. And then Meg adopted this metaphor, which just amuses me. It's apt, but it just amuses me because it's a very sports metaphor. So Meg sees us as those downfield blockers in a football game, opening the path for other people to be seen and heard. And it's an apt analogy, but Meg is not a football person. And so how she came up with it, I don't know. I've got the knees from playing football. And so it's real for me. So, so that's really been the approach, and that continues to be the approach in terms of how we do the work. So we're, when we're working with the board, it's, who on the board can lead this piece, who can lead that piece, where can we find more people to be involved. It's not about us. It really isn't. We have, to continue with the football analogy for no particular reason, we have the playbook, right? It's not showing up very well on the screen. The report from the Commission on Institutional Change, which outlines, the work to be done. So that's the approach that we've taken. It's like, okay, so we have this, and now we're beginning to ask the question, okay, if we're going to really be focusing on this work, maybe there's some other things that typically have been done that can be let go. And so we're going to be talking about that on Monday with the board, is maybe some things could be put on hiatus. Maybe we can take a list of things to the General Assembly this year and say, in the interest of the association doing the work of the Commission's report, maybe we should put some other things on hiatus. I'm not naming any particular things right now, just asking the broader question. Let's marshal our resources to do this work rather than all the things that we've always done in the past.
I wanted to ask, what was there something when you both came in, and you both have been UU leaders for quite a while, but was there still something that surprised you that you didn't realize was part of the moderator position?
Yes, every day. Yes, so yeah, there are a lot of things that the moderator is baked into that. You just don't know. If you read the bylaws, it's sort of straightforward in terms of responsible for this, and then you find out that as a result of that, in a variety of different policies, the moderator shows up in different places. So, when there's a personnel complaint within the UUA, the moderator has to be informed. And I mean, there are different things every day, and I don't think it's all collected somewhere, and that might be an effort at some point to sort of look at, okay, let's just try and sort of collect this all into one place so we know what all these things are.
Yeah, right at first, I think at least I kind of had heard summer was slow. So I was kind of thinking summer would be slow, but there were just all these people lined up and waiting with their needs, who I just, again, thinking of Barb and Alandria with really demanding full-time work, professional work, and doing this, it just some days felt like I had a job again that was, I'd been like, oh no, this won't be more than 5 or 10 hours a week. And that was a little bit delusional on my part. We're trying, as Charles said, really hard. And the more we get other people at the helm of things, the more we can, stay back. But the bylaws are this weird, and again, I'm not a bylaws person, but they're this weird mix of what I think are policies and did you know, I didn't know, for instance, that the principles and purposes are part of our bylaws. And so that's why now we have a commission, an Article 2 commission, that's really looking at what are we doing with this? Is this really where our statement of faith belongs, is in the bylaws? And it's a wonderful, wonderful commission. Paula Cole-Jones is part of it, coming from the 8th Principle work that she's been doing. Cheryl Walker's on it. They're two amazing youth who are part of it, who just are delightful to work with. Becky Brooks, who's a religious educator in Baltimore, is on it. Oh God, I'm forgetting his name. Oh, I hate that.
Rob Spiro.
Thank you. Rob Spiro's a lay leader from Tennessee, who's a professor and really wonderful with languages on it. Did I miss anyone else? I hate starting to name people because I always miss
Cheryl Walker.
I said Cheryl.
Did you?
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, so it's this amazing commission of people who are taking it really seriously. And I flag this because for this to be successful, they're really going to want to engage with lots and lots of people in the next couple of years. Oh, and Marcus Fogliano is now on staff at UUA as a project manager. And so Marcus is a fabulous asset in all kinds of places and ways, but working with the Article 2 Commission too. And so that's one of the main things that the former board had begun, but really this group didn't get launched until July because they wanted to have youth on it, and you have to have 2 youth, and just getting all of that together was just a little more time consuming. But so that's a really exciting initiative that I've been part of those meetings. Partly I say, because I do have a new metaphor, Charles, and it is funny, I was listening to you going, a blocker, is that what that's called? Because I've just been saying, that person, I don't know what they're called, but anyway. But my new metaphor, it's not really a metaphor, is I want my name on the list of who's in the room so that if people are mad, they talk to me, because we expect a lot of resistance from people who look like Charles and me. Older white people are kind of the people who often you're trying to kind of keep from stopping progress. And I love my people. I am my people. And I keep saying to that group, like, if you get people who are mad, that's what we're here for. Like, our name is on the list specifically to say, oh yeah, we're in that room. Yep. Oh no, they're doing the work of the Lord, to really, because what Barb and Alandria and so many marginalized people have learned, just like with police violence, people treat us differently when they're mad. And what people lay on just so wrongly and so horrifically on marginalized people, we want to intervene and just be the people who take some of that. So I think that's another key role that I hadn't really, I'd come in clearly with the blocker thing, but I hadn't yet realized that I'm also like the one going, no, I was there. No, you're mad? Talk to me. You talk to me. So anyway, that's one of the projects I'm really excited is solidly launched. It's such an amazing group doing such good work. And you can follow all of that on the UUA website. They're going to be, they have been blogging. They have made a video to introduce themselves, and they really, really want to interact with the movement about it.
Yeah, we've definitely mentioned on the VUU this commission and its work, and talking about it in conjunction with the Commission on Institutional Change's work. And you mentioned that a little bit as well. So how do you, and you've mentioned that that's kind of the blueprint, how do you see governance and the UUA Board of Trustees role in that work?
So probably two things we want to say first. So we want to talk about, I think, an accountability structure that came out of discussions from the report and from the last GA, right? So there's discussion about whether the Journey Toward Wholeness Committee would be laid down and something else put in its place, right? And so in order to put together the thing that would be in its place, it needed to be designed, because it's not designed in the report. And the other thing that happened early on with Meg and I as co-moderators was the board had received the report, but the board hadn't said anything that they were going to do with the report, right? And there's an unfortunate history in Unitarian Universalism where reports are received and not acted upon. So early on, the board passed a resolution fully engaging in the work of the report and saying that, you know, this is what we're going to do. We've received it, sure, but now we're actually doing the work. And we started putting together the design team to design the accountability structure. And I don't know, Meg, you've been working directly with them. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, we wanted people who had experience with complex UU accountability issues. So from our board, and I should say right away, what an amazing board it is. It's just the people on the board work that, you know, they're willing to take things on. They're excited about it. It's really a wonderful board. And again, hats off to Barb and Landry. I know that wonderful boards don't just invent themselves. So, but yeah, it's a really great board. And so from the board, we asked two people who had a lot of experience with accountability in really positive ways. And those are Suzanne Fast, who comes with us with a portfolio with equal access, and also worked on the GA in Phoenix to get accountability with the local communities and the UUs, and also Leslie Mack, who's just worked in a whole lot of environments around accountability. So those two came on as board members, and that was really exciting. And then, they may need to add a few other people, but the people that we put on immediately are Dr. Sophia Betancourt agreed to be part of it, and CB Beal also agreed to be part of it. So it's a real power team. And what we want them to do is to think through the next steps as they imagine how accountability can be effective. Now, meanwhile, and this would be a whole different show you could do with Carrie and Susan or Quiana or someone from staff. Staff is also really looking at accountability issues around the report and how to move forward. And they've got their whole own system going. And we really, you know, we're really clear at all times that we do not want to be in parallel universes. We really want to be working together because the work is so connected. So that'll be part of what the design team figures out, is how. And I don't know if someone from the staff will end up on that team. You know, they've met. I'm not in their meetings, so they'll figure out what they need to do next. But I feel like the right people are there who are just really smart about thinking through these things and And so, yeah, that's kind of where the accountability thing is. Meanwhile, we kind of looked at some of the things in the report that looked like, low-hanging fruit, that looked like the board should just be doing them. And one of those is to really try to look at some of the bylaws that actually tie us in knots, which the report goes on about. And Charles, I'll pass that back to you.
Right. So so there are a couple different things around the governance and the bylaws that we've begun working on. We should also say that because things cost money, early on we talked about where's the money going to come from to do this work, right? And so this is one of the weird COVID paradoxes, but because of COVID, there is so much less travel going on, and travel is a huge chunk of the UUA budget. We've been able to identify other sources of funding within the UUA budget and set them aside specifically for doing the commission's work. So we've identified both funding, accountability, and now, so as the board approaches the governance piece, there are a couple things that we're starting with. So one is we needed to start with it unfortunately is a parallel thing. We need to get the presidential search committee in place because there hasn't been a presidential search committee. It's one of the things that we inherited that isn't quite where it should be. So we have a sub team from the nominations and the appointments committee working together to put that in place. And at the same time, a bylaws team from the board is looking closely at those bylaws that relate to the presidential search committee and the role of presidential search committee, and following along with some of the recommendations in the report. How do we really want to choose our president, and how do we really want to choose our leadership? And so there is some brainstorming going on. There's some ideas that have been discussed. The goal is to have some proposed bylaw amendments for this GA, specifically around that. So that's the first piece. And then, as I alluded to earlier, there's going to be discussion around, okay, so what is it that we might put on hiatus so that we can focus on the governance work, and then we'll, it's part of and someone mentioned it earlier, right? The bylaws are full of a lot of policies. It's not a traditional bylaw structure. It's a lot of somebody solved a problem at one point and stuck something in there. There are still sections that say this section is intentionally blank, which something was there at one time and somebody took it out. So there is given our druthers, I think we'd love to start from the beginning and just write brand new bylaws that were just simple and direct and focused on what the mission and purpose and vision of the organization to be. So we're looking at ways that gets defined early in the process, and then from that, what flows out of that, and structure the bylaws accordingly.
Are you at liberty to name whether or not you all are looking at changing the bylaws to include co-presidents? Because I was told maybe a few years ago at the first presidential search committee that the bylaws prohibited a co-presidency, although you all appoint the board, I'm looking at Chris Rivera, when you were on the board, you appointed co-president. So maybe there isn't. Now I'm confused by my own question because it happened. So can the search committee ask for, the way the CLF search team did, proposals from teams?
So whereas the moderator role is now explicit in the bylaws that it can be a team, it's not explicit about the president, right? So we were talking about whether we thought that should be reasonable, because given, look at the work that the three of you are doing, look at all the different experiments in shared leadership. And when's the book coming out?
I'm still working on it. We are, so Dee and I are working on it, I promise.
So, I mean, if you look at all the experiments in shared leadership that are blossoming across Unitarian Universalism, then maybe that should be a possibility, right? But so then we discussed, okay, so if suppose we had, because right now it says 2 or more candidates. So suppose you had a presidential team running against a single individual, and the structure is such that whoever is elected takes over immediately at that GA. What kind of craziness does that create for the staff to try and plan for all those different outcomes? So, so I think, and again, this is just brainstorming that's going on in the bylaws and the board right now, is that it certainly seems like we should be able to come up with an idea that allows for some sort of shared leadership model for president as well. But that might mean that we have to structure things differently in terms of how we select and affirm or vote on who that next president or team is.
Yeah, so I think the key is, when we did this on the board, to answer Aisha's question, the key is to find out what it is that is faithful and what it is that is liberatory and what it is, the ways in which we need to act differently. And then use our tools like our bylaws in order to support that work, as opposed to the other way around of, trying to somehow wrestle liberatory faith from, a set of bylaws. And so, for instance, when we did the tri-presidents, we just did it. And we said, to fulfill the legal mandate, we did name one person as the quote unquote corporate president. But, I think we named that in one press release, just saying that we were doing that. But in all other matters, it was the tri-presidents. And so we fulfilled our corporate, and our fiduciary responsibility, as a nonprofit organization of the state of Massachusetts and, all of those kinds of things. But what we said was, we know that we need to be able to model this. We know that this is so crucial. This is such a crucial turning point in our in our faith movement's history that we have to do this. So if we have to do this, then how do we marshal the resources that we have in order to support that? And so, we were like, well, what do we have to do to be in legal compliance? Okay, let's be in legal compliance. That doesn't mean we have to act that, in that way. We can still act in this way that is faithful and that helps show what liberatory faith can look like. And so, we did that for the tri-presidents, and then we did it for the moderators. At the time that we had the co-moderators, it was not in the bylaws that you could have co-moderators. And we did the same thing. We actually, Denise Rhymes was our quote unquote, on paper moderator for several months. While we were working out how to enshrine the co-moderators into the system in a way that was faithful and also upheld our legal responsibilities, because that is important. I'm not saying that isn't an important function of governance and of the administration. It just shouldn't be the only. So I think, at least from my point of view, when I talk about fiduciary responsibility in a religious setting, to me, it's not just about fiscal responsibility. It is about our fiduciary responsibility to Unitarian Universalism, first and foremost. And so if we kind of reframe and reshape, then we get to do all sorts of really great and exciting things that allow us to see that Meg can say, hey, yeah, I don't have to have all of the skills. Like, no one person should have to have all of the skills, right? That is just such bullshit. And that we continue to try and enshrine this system where just one person can possibly be everything to everyone is just asinine. So yeah, I think that's what we're trying to break out of. And I'm so happy that Meg and Charles said yes to doing that, and to also reframing, Meg, I think what you had said about, having gone to religious professional or UUs of color to say, would they do this with you? And
or without me.
Or without, yeah, but anyway. Yeah, and it was funny because we've had these conversations and kind of the mantra behind the scenes is friends don't let friends become the UUA moderator or UUA president, because it's a rough gig to begin with, and as a UU of color, it's just devastating. So I really appreciate that you two have framed it as taking this position in order to make it into something that someone else can serve in. Because there's lots of folks that want to, and lots of folks that would be brilliant at it. And I couldn't recommend the position to them. As it stood, I had lots of people ask me, and I was like, I would not take that position. And I would not tell you to take that position. So I really do appreciate that.
Charles and Meg, I'm wondering, is there something that you can say about where we might be in terms of thinking about the moderator position as a paid position, for example? I know when I was on the UUA board, we examined that because it was the first time that the board nominated the people who were running for moderator. We nominated Jim and Tamara to run for that. But we were told by our legal counsel at the time that you needed special permission from the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the chief governance officer of a nonprofit to be paid by the nonprofit. And unfortunately, we heard that as, no, you can't do it, and not, here's what it takes to ask for that permission. So I'm wondering, is there something you can say about where we are in terms of moving that forward? Because I really think it's important. And if there's not anything, I appreciate it too. But
so before we got on, the board and others had worked out a policy so that there could be some kind of compensation for wages lost in some modest way. And I don't know the details of that. I don't know if you know more, Meg, that you would want to share. No, okay. So there is some policy that exists to provide some compensation, but it's not a full-time paid job in any way whatsoever. And there's a bigger question, right? So the commission asked the question of whether there should be a separate elected moderator and president, and maybe those positions should be combined. So that's a question that's out there. I try not to get people to sort of focus on that question, because then people just get distracted by it. So the larger question is, where does that, where does leadership come from? What does it look like? So if you look, and people will quote back to, there was a 1993 report on governance that suggested a number of changes, which was, again, one of those reports that I think was received but not necessarily acted upon. And it includes a discussion of all these different things as well. So I think during these 5 years, we hope that Unitarian Universalists envision a different way that leadership is structured, so it's not that. And the short answer is yes, there is some compensation for people who really have some loss of wages, and I think they were able to make that work for Barb
at the end. Yeah, it's a bigger question than the moderator. There's a whole thing about unpaid labor, especially in the pandemic, but also with the economy and just the kinds of people who can afford to be leaders. And that's true about GA leadership. We see it with the musicians, we see it with the youth. There are just a lot of people talking about compensation in a way that I think we're really going to need to look very holistically and what leadership means. And I think congregations have their own versions of this too that are going on. But I think particularly as people who are economically marginalized and well as in other ways do work, it's and if we want the leadership to really represent the movement, how can we really do that best? I think this will be a long-term conversation on many, many levels going on.
And wouldn't it be great if Unitarian Universalism modeled for this capitalist society? Because what's coming up for me as you both are talking about, as all of us are talking about compensation, is there are folks in our movement that can absolutely afford to do volunteer work and on paper because they had successful careers and you. And then folks that need to be compensated. So it's not like, to me, it's kind of like that $1,200 check and how many wealthy people got it. Are you kidding me? And instead of giving it to the folks who need to pay rent and need a lot more than $1,200, and not give the people who don't need $1,200. This was the tax, the pandemic that the ridiculous government garbage sent out. Anyway, I'm digressing. So not because this whole thing about equality and equity aren't the same, and having recognition that if you are able to volunteer, then volunteer, and for those, so not having it be the same, rather than everybody gets paid whether or not you need it, or nobody gets paid whether or not you need it. And I know that's fraught, and it's I don't know if it's necessarily a universally accepted idea, and I wonder about putting that forth, that not everybody needs it, and so why do we have it as the same for everybody?
That has been true with a number of the commissions of the board, that people who need the money to take it and people who have a full-time salary sometimes say, no, I don't need that, or people who are retired. But yeah, and this seems like a really good time, because I see we're coming to the top of the hour, to promote next Tuesday, Charles.
So last Tuesday, Meg and I hosted an open house with the board and people who wanted to come. And this Tuesday, we're hosting an open house for people who are interested in serving in any of the committees and places that the UUA has. We are inviting members and chairs of existing committees to come and join us in this Zoom call, which will be at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And I don't have the Zoom link in front of me, but it's out there on various pages. And so we want people to come. If you're interested in being a part of one of the committees of the UUA and you want to know more about it, come and ask. You want to know more about the application process, come and ask. We expect to have people from nominations and appointments there who can answer questions about that process as well. And it's just going to be a grand time. It won't be as much fun as CLF nailed it, but
well, really, nothing can be. So let's just not. Yeah, we won't set that as the goal.
That's a really high bar that I put out there.
Charles, do you want to give us a sense of some of the committees and commissions that will be represented there? So maybe people out there in VUU land can start thinking about whether they want to come to this thing.
Yeah, so now I quickly remember every committee that exists.
You don't have to remember everyone, just a couple of them.
So of course there will be openings on nominations, appointments. There's openings on the board of trustees. There's openings in commission on appraisal, the commission for social witness. Let's see, Chris is
planning committee, GA planning committee.
GA planning committee. There are a number of finance related boards. There's the audit committee, there's the health retirement plan, there's the social responsible investing committee.
Couple board appointed spots on the ministerial fellowship committee coming open next year. Is that?
That's correct.
And there are huge jobs and smaller jobs. So, I noticed a comment from someone who said, I can't really get involved in larger positions and projects. And some of these, like being moderator, are super huge gigs, and others are not such super huge gigs. So if you're even thinking about it, I really encourage you to come. We really hope that some new people will come. One thing that's true is that the leadership pipelines, a lot of them aren't there. The district boards used to be pipelines to national leadership. A whole lot of different youth programs and young adult programs used to be pipelines to leadership. A lot of those leadership schools, a lot of things aren't there. And so sometimes the path really is from your congregation to a national position now, which, if you're thinking, oh, I don't really have the skill, remember you'll be part of a team. And like me, you don't have to have all the skills. You just need to have a piece of something. And so I really encourage you to come. We'll have conversations. The UUA has made a portal to, allegedly, it's way easier to apply than it used to be. I have not tested it. Charles, have you?
Yes, it is. It is easier.
Good. Because I heard it used to be quite a hurdle to jump to even get an application in. So yeah, please check it out. And this really is a team effort. We really do need all kinds of leaders and people from various perspectives and identities. That's the only way we're going to be able to do this work.
So I'll just give a shout out for volunteerism here at the national level, because one of the things that I try and say wherever I go is I did not understand Unitarian Universalism until I served on national leadership. Like I understand theologically, I didn't understand the culture, and I didn't understand the both the barriers and the challenges and the gifts and the joys until I did national leadership as a volunteer. Because so much of what we experience in our congregations that we think is just a quirky congregation is actually Unitarian Universalist culture. And so if you can look at it from both sides of both the congregational level and our faith as a whole, and see how those are influencing each other and how you can influence them, it really, really helps bring our faith into alignment. At least it did for me, and in a really exciting way. Like it wasn't like it was a little bit of a bummer. I'm going to give you that, but it was also really, really imaginative to be able to think about the different ways that our faith really is liberatory. That sometimes we get caught up in at the congregational level that we can't see through, and vice versa. Sometimes we get caught up at the national level and we can't see through. So just a huge plug. Please join Charles and Meg next week. It'll be good, and there is a spot for you. There's always a spot for you. There's always just a place to get plugged in, and you may find that wasn't the right place. We'll find another place for you. Like it's there for you, I promise. Any last words, Meg and Charles? You guys have got the last 2 minutes of the hour to make sure that we hit anything you needed.
Oh, Meg.
Well, I have to do this. Since Chris just so wonderfully did a pitch for UUA volunteer leadership, and since you all, when you weren't the lead ministry, used to do such wonderful pitches for CLF, and I always appreciate it so much, I will say as a guest how much I hope that the wider movement is supporting this bold, visionary, exciting new leadership. Not even new anymore, sorry, leadership at the CLF, and just how wonderful it is, and to see what we can do when we bring different skills and gifts together. And that's how I feel about the UUA board and the UUA staff and leadership. It is so exciting to see when the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So thank you. Thanks for having us. enjoy Iron Chef.
Thank you all for being here, and thanks to Meg and Charles for being here, and we hope to see you next week on The VUU. Bye, everyone.